The crystal champagne flute caught the light just so. 62 candles flickered across the dining room of Lorenzo's, my favorite restaurant in town. My son Marcus had reserved the private room, cream tablecloths, mahogany chairs, waitstaff hovering at the edges. Perfect, like a magazine spread. Too perfect. To Mum, Marcus raised his glass, his smile warm but his eyes darting to Alison, my daughter-in-law of 15 years. To many more birthdays filled with clarity and joy. Clarity. An odd word choice. Alison's fingers twitched against her napkin. Just once, but I caught it. Why was she checking her watch? Her sleek blonde bob swung forward, hiding her expression as she reached for her water. Something flashed in her eyes when they met meaner calculation, cold and precise. I'd seen that look before, when our dog mysteriously fell ill after she suggested she could care for him while we travelled, when she casually mentioned my little memory slips to my bridge club, when she rearranged my medication organizer to help. The champagne arrived. The waiter poured 6 glasses with practiced elegance. Bubbles raced to the surface like tiny messengers of celebration. But as he placed mine before me, slightly apart from the others, something shifted in the room. A heaviness descended, invisible yet suffocating. "Mum looks tired already," Alison said, her voice honey-sweet with concern. "Maybe we should make this a quick dinner." Marcus frowned. "She's fine, Allie. It's her birthday." "Of course she is." Alison's smile tightened. "I'm just watching out for her. You know how she gets when she's overtired." "How I get? I've never gotten anywhere in my life." My friend Catherine squeezed my hand under the table. She'd been noticing too, the way Alison had been inserting herself between me and my finances. The helpful suggestions that maybe my house was too much to manage. The disappearing mail. The missed phone messages. A toast. I lifted my glass, studying the pale gold liquid. Was it just me? Or did Alison's eyes never leave my drink? A young waitress appeared at my elbow to refill the water glasses. Dark hair pulled back, name tag reading Jada. As she leaned forward, her hand brushed mine deliberately, I realized. Something papery pressed against my palm. "Enjoy your evening," Jada said, her eyes intense with meaning. I slipped the folded note beneath my napkin, heart suddenly pounding. The conversation continued around me, but the words blurred together. With practiced casualness, I unfolded the paper beneath the table. 5 words in hasty script. "Don't drink this. Danger. Bathroom." My world tilted. The beautiful room, the loving family gathering, a facade hiding something sinister. I glanced at Alison, who was watching me with that same artificial smile, waiting, expectant. "Before we drink," I said, rising carefully, nature calls. 62 has its disadvantages. Polite laughter followed me as I walked to the ladies' room, legs trembling beneath my silk dress. The note burned in my hand. What awaited me? Who was Jada? Why would she warn me? And more terrifying, what was in my champagne? I pushed open the bathroom door, prepared for the worst. But sometimes the worst comes wrapped in ordinary packages. Like a smiling daughter-in-law. Like a special birthday drink. Like the reflection of yourself in the mirror, suddenly wondering, who can you trust when danger wears the face of family? Have you ever felt that chill when something isn't right, but you can't quite name it yet? The bathroom door swung shut behind me. Empty stalls, marble countertops, soft lighting. And Jada waiting by the sinks, tension evident in every line of her body. "Mrs. Reynolds? I don't have much time." Her voice was low, urgent. I recognized her. "Your daughter-in-law from St. Mary's Care Home, where my grandmother was a resident 3 years ago." My throat tightened. Alison. She's never worked at a care facility, not as staff, as a visitor to another resident. An elderly woman named Eleanor Proctor. Jada's hands trembled. "Who died under suspicious circumstances after your daughter-in-law became very involved in her care." The elegant bathroom suddenly felt airless. "Why are you telling me this?" Because I saw her put something in your champagne while your son was talking to the manager about your birthday cake. Her eyes met mine, unflinching. And because I've been watching her ever since my grandmother died. She has a pattern. 6 months ago, the changes had been subtle. Alison offering to organize my pills so you don't get confused. Charlotte. Marcus mentioning how Alison was worried about your memory slips. The suggested doctor's appointments. The concerned looks when I'd forget a minor detail, something anyone might forget. Then came the missing jewelry. The changed Wi-Fi password. The suggested simpler phone because mine was too complicated. The financial advisor Alison had personally selected. The casual mentions at family gatherings about Mum's difficult days. I thought I was going crazy, I whispered. You're not. Jada pulled something from her pocket, a small vial. Switch your glass with hers when you return. I'll collect both later for testing. You've done this before, I realized. Not in time to save my grandmother. Her eyes hardened. But maybe in time to save you. My mind raced back through 15 years of family dinners, holidays and vacations. Alison had always been perfect. Managing family gatherings, remembering everyone's preferences, organizing our lives with efficient precision. Marcus adored her capability, her attention to detail. But there had been others who'd fallen away. My old friends who found Alison a bit controlling. The neighbors who mentioned her cold streak. My sister who'd said just once, "There's something not quite right there, Charlotte." I'd dismissed them all as jealous or judgmental. My beautiful, capable daughter-in-law who'd given me my precious grandchildren, who'd stepped in when arthritis made gardening difficult, who always remembered my medications. A chill ran through me. The unexplained dizziness, I murmured. The confusion, the fatigue. Jada nodded grimly. Classic signs of certain cardiac medications when inappropriately administered. Digoxin, perhaps? She's been poisoning me. The words felt unreal leaving my lips. But why? Your house. Your savings. The control? Jada glanced at her watch. We don't have time to analyze motives. You need to get back before she gets suspicious. The elegant bathroom suddenly felt like a war room. My heart raced, but my mind cleared with startling precision. I'd always prided myself on being steady in a crisis. What's your connection to all this? I asked. I'm in nursing school now. I promised myself I'd watch for her after what happened. Been tracking her online. Jada squared her shoulders. Now go back, switch the glasses, and act normal. I'll handle the rest. I walked back to the table on legs that felt disconnected from my body. The faces of my family, my real family, and the stranger I'd welcomed into it came into sharp focus. Marcus, my son, laughing at something Catherine had said. My grandchildren, Emma and Tyler, sneaking glimpses at their phones. And Alison, watching the door for my return, that same pleasant smile masking something predatory. Everything okay, Mom? Concern dripped from her voice like poison honey. Perfect, I smiled, taking my seat. Are we toast? How many times have you smiled and said everything's fine when your intuition was screaming warnings? To family, I said, raising my glass with a steady hand. Alison's smile never reached her eyes. To family and taking care of each other. The irony burned worse than the champagne would have. As glasses clinked around the table, I performed the maneuver Jada and I had planned, a momentary distraction, as Catherine asked about my pearl earrings. A slight stumble that had me reaching to stabilize myself, and the quick exchange of my glass with Alison's. So simple, so terrifying. I drank. The champagne was dry and crisp against my tongue. Across the table, Alison sipped from what had been my glass. Her lips curved in satisfaction as she watched me drink. Whatever victory she anticipated would not come. The minutes ticked by. The waiter brought appetizers, scallops for Marcus, bruschetta for Catherine, the calamari Alison had specially requested because it's Charlotte's favorite. I'd never liked calamari, but Alison had been telling people about my preferences for years now, writing me bit by bit, preparing the world for a Charlotte who was no longer reliable, a Charlotte who needed management. Grandma, did you see the TikTok I sent you? Emma, 16 and luminous, leaned forward. I don't think Grandma checks those things, honey, Alison interjected smoothly. She finds technology so confusing these days. I had 300 followers on my gardening Instagram. I'd helped Emma set up her first social media accounts. Actually, I loved it. I replied directly to Emma, especially the part with the harmonizing. Alison's eyebrow twitched, the barest flicker of annoyance at this deviation from her narrative. She reached for her water glass, took another sip of champagne. 5 minutes had passed since the toast. Are you feeling all right, Charlotte? Catherine asked, her voice casual but her eyes intent. I'd known Catherine for 40 years. She'd been watching Alison too, I realized. Noticing the inconsistencies, the controlling behaviors. I'm feeling perfectly clear, I answered, emphasizing the word Marcus had used earlier. 7 minutes since the toast. Alison set down her fork, her hand trembling slightly. She pressed her napkin to her lips. Excuse me, she murmured. I'm feeling a bit warm. As she stood, her face drained of color. Her pupils contracted to pinpoints. The champagne glass, my original glass, toppled as she grabbed the table edge. Ally, Marcus half rose, concern etched across his features. Alison swayed, her breathing shallow and irregular. I don't, she began before her legs gave way. Marcus caught her before she hit the floor. The restaurant erupted in concerned murmurs. Call 911. Catherine was already on her feet, directing staff with the authority of her 40 years as an emergency room nurse. Jada appeared at my elbow. It's working faster than I expected, she whispered. Must be a higher dose than usual. The next moments blurred. The arrival of paramedics, the stretcher, the rushed explanations. I stayed back, watching as they loaded Alison into the ambulance. Marcus looked torn, glancing between his wife and me. Go, I told him. I'll follow with Catherine. As the ambulance doors closed, Jada pressed something into my hand, a small evidence bag containing a sample from my original champagne glass. The hospital will find it in her blood work, she said. But this proves intent. Call Detective Lee at Portland PD. Tell her Jada Martin sent you. In the chaos, no one noticed the exchange. No one except Tyler, my 13-year-old grandson, his eyes wide with confusion and dawning comprehension. How much had he seen? How much should a child know about the darkness adults can harbor? Grandma. His voice was small, uncertain. What's happening to Mum? The truth hovered on my lips. But there in the restaurant, with curious onlookers and my grandchild's innocent face, I couldn't form the words. Your mother tried to kill me. Instead, has poisoned herself. We're going to find out, I said, taking his hand. And everything will finally come to light. What would you do if the person trying to harm you was someone you once trusted completely? The emergency room buzzed with controlled chaos. Doctors spoke in rapid, clipped sentences. Marcus paced the waiting area, confusion etched into the lines of his face. The children sat huddled together, Tyler's arm protectively around Emma's shoulders. Catherine had gone to speak with the medical staff, her credentials as a retired O nurse opening doors. Digoxin toxicity, Catherine confirmed, returning to our corner of the waiting room. Potentially fatal levels. They're treating her with Digibind. What does that mean? Marcus demanded. How did this happen? I reached into my purse and withdrew the note from Jada and the evidence bag. My hands didn't tremble. The time for fear had passed. Your wife put it in my champagne glass, Marcus. I switched them. His face went slack with disbelief. Mom, that's insane. Alison wouldn't, Mrs. Reynolds. A tall woman in plainclothes approached, badge in hand. "I'm Detective Lee. Joda Martin called me. We need to talk." The next hours unfolded with the grim precision of a clock's gears. Hospital rooms, police interviews, evidence collection, blood tests, the discovery of a small vial in Allison's purse containing white powder, the stunned disbelief on Marcus's face giving way to horror as the facts accumulated. "She's been gaslighting you for months," Detective Lee explained, reviewing my statement, "creating a narrative of cognitive decline to isolate you from support systems and gain control of your finances." "Years," I corrected quietly. "It's been happening for years. I just didn't see it." "Few people do," Lee replied. "These perpetrators are master manipulators. They choose victims carefully, isolate methodically, and create plausible explanations for everything." Catherine sat beside me, her presence steady as a heartbeat. "The symptoms Charlotte has been experiencing, the confusion, dizziness, memory issues, they're consistent with long-term, low-dose poisoning. We'll need to run a toxicology screen on you as well, Mrs. Reynolds," Lee said, "and examine your medications at home." Marcus sat with his head in his hands. "I don't understand. We have a good life. Charlotte has always been generous with us." "Why would Allison control?" Detective Lee answered simply. "And eventually your mother's assets. We found some concerning documents in Allison's personal email. Draft powers of attorney, life insurance inquiries, care facility brochures. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. The missing mail had likely included bank statements. The financial advisor Allison had selected was probably an accomplice. The doctor she'd been so insistent I see, had they been part of this too?" "There's more," Detective Lee continued. "Joda Martin provided us with information about another case, an elderly woman named Eleanor Proctor, who died 3 years ago under suspicious circumstances. Allison was involved as a volunteer companion to Mrs. Proctor in the months leading up to her death, after which," I said slowly, "she suggested we invest in long-term care insurance. For peace of mind." Detective Lee's eyes sharpened. "Did she help you fill out the paperwork?" "She completed it entirely. Said it was complicated and she wanted to make it easier for me." Lee made a note. "We'll need those documents." A doctor approached our group, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Reynolds? Your wife is stabilized, but we found something concerning in her extended toxicology panel. There are traces of multiple pharmaceutical compounds, scopolamine, benzodiazepines, and several cardiac medications. Those weren't in the champagne," Lee stated. "No," the doctor confirmed. "These appear to be regular, low-level exposures over time. She has the markers of someone who handles these substances regularly." Marcus looked up, face ashen. "Allison volunteers at the hospital pharmacy twice a week. Community service, she called it." The final piece clicked into place. Access to medications, knowledge of dosages, the perfect cover. "She's been poisoning herself too?" Catherine asked. "No," the doctor clarified. "These are transfer tracers, what you'd find on someone who handles these drugs regularly without proper precautions. The question is, who was she giving them to?" I finished. Marcus turned to me, tears streaming down his face. "Mum, I swear I didn't know. I never suspected." "Of course you didn't," I said gently. She made sure of that. How many warning signs do we miss because we can't imagine the darkness hiding behind a loved one's smile? The search of our homes revealed the full, horrifying scope of Allison's deception. In my kitchen, tampered tea bags, laced with cardiac medications that would cause gradual cognitive decline. In my bathroom, moisturizer mixed with compounds that would absorb through the skin, causing dizziness and confusion. In Allison's home office, a hidden compartment containing vials, powders, and a detailed journal tracking my symptoms and decline. "It's methodical," Detective Lee said, flipping through the journal. "She's been drugging you for at least 18 months. documenting the effects and adjusting dosages. The most damning evidence came from my own medicine cabinet. My regular prescriptions, blood pressure medication, mild anti-inflammatories for arthritis had been replaced with leukolike, pills containing varying levels of psychoactive compounds. "This explains everything," Catherine said, her voice tight with anger. "The confusion episodes always happened after you'd been at their house for dinner or after Allison brought you food. Marcus hadn't spoken in hours. He sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by the evidence of his wife's betrayal, looking like a man who'd aged a decade overnight. The children were staying with Catherine's daughter, away from the nightmare unfolding in both their homes. "There's a file here," Detective Lee said, scrolling through Allison's laptop. "Financial projections, your accounts, Marcus's inheritance expectations, life insurance policies." She looked up grimly. "She's been planning this for years." The projections showed a clear timeline. My gradual decline, transfer of assets, placement in memory care, and eventually an anticipated death within 36 months. All carefully managed to appear natural, expected, even compassionate. She presented herself as the devoted daughter-in-law, Lee continued, taking on the burden of caring for you as you declined, building a reputation as selfless while systematically destroying your health and independence. The doorbell rang. Catherine answered it, returning with Joda. "I brought the records I mentioned," she said, placing a folder on the table. "My grandmother's case. The similarities are unmistakable." The photos showed an elegant older woman, first vibrant and engaged, then progressively more confused and frail in later images. The final photos showed her funeral program. Eleanor Proctor, beloved mother and grandmother, dead at 74 from complications of dementia. "There was no autopsy," Jada explained. "No investigation. Allison had befriended my grandmother at a church function. Became like family to her. Started bringing meals, helping with medications. Within 6 months, my grandmother couldn't recognize me. 3 months after that, she was dead. And no one questioned it," I said softly. Allison was the grieving honorary granddaughter. So devoted, so concerned. Jada's voice broke. "I tried to tell people something was wrong, but I was just that angry, biological granddaughter who'd been replaced in Eleanor's affections." Marcus finally spoke. "How many others?" Lee exchanged glances with Jada. "We're looking into at least 3 other cases now, all following the same pattern." The weight of it crashed over me, not just my near death, but the actual deaths Allison might have caused. The lives ended, the families shattered, all while she played the role of loving caretaker. The hospital found these. Lee placed several prescription bottles on the table, in Allison's purse. "Multiple medications prescribed to you, Charlotte, by 5 different doctors." "I only have 2 doctors," I said. "My GP and my rheumatologist." "Dr. Chopin," Lee explained. "Using different pharmacies too, so no single system would flag the dangerous combinations." A text alert sounded on Lee's phone. She read it, her expression hardening. "Allison's awake. She's asking for Marcus." My son looked up, his face a battlefield of grief and rage. What do I say to her? How do I face her, knowing what she tried to do to my mother? What she's been doing all along? "You don't have to see her," I began. "Yes, I do." He stood slowly. "I need to hear it from her. I need to understand, or try to, how the woman I've loved for 15 years could do this." As he prepared to leave with Detective Lee, I caught his arm. "The children," I said. "What will you tell them?" The anguish in his eyes would haunt me. The truth, eventually. A version they can understand. That their mother is very sick, has done terrible things, and won't be coming home. After they left, Catherine, Jada and I sat in the kitchen, the same kitchen where Allison had prepared countless meals laced with poison, served with smiles and concern. "How did you know?" I asked Jada. "That night, at the restaurant. How did you recognize her after 3 years?" "I never forgot her face," Jada said simply. "And I've been watching obituaries, social media, community groups looking for her pattern. When I saw her volunteer post at the hospital pharmacy, I started working at Lorenzo's specifically because she mentioned online it was your favorite restaurant. You've been hunting her, Catherine realized. Justice for my grandmother, Garda nodded. And prevention of what happened to her happening to someone else. She looked at me. I was almost too late. When someone shows you who they are, do you believe them the first time? Or do you need to see the pattern repeated before the truth becomes undeniable? Hospitals have their own rhythmer, percussion of squeaking shoes, beeping monitors, and hushed voices. Marcus and I sat side by side in the consultation room, waiting for Dr. Levine to arrive with my comprehensive toxicology results. 1 week had passed since the birthday that had nearly been my last. You don't have to do this, I told my son. I know how difficult. I'm not leaving your side again, he interrupted, his voice raw but determined. Not for a minute. The door opened. Dr. Levine entered with Detective Lee. Their expressions told me everything before they spoke a word. Mrs. Reynolds, Dr. Levine began, the results confirm long-term exposure to multiple substances. Digoxin primarily, but also scopolamine, lorazepam, and traces of several antipsychotic medications, designed to create symptoms of cognitive decline, Detective Lee added, while making you increasingly dependent on your caregiver, who was simultaneously poisoning you. Allison, Marcus whispered, the name itself now poisoned. The good news, Doctor, Levine continued, is that these compounds will clear your system. The symptoms you've been experiencing, confusion, dizziness, memory lapses, should resolve completely within weeks. I wasn't losing my mind. I said, the relief so profound it felt like floating. No, Mrs. Reynolds, you were being systematically poised to make it appear that way. Marcus covered his face with his hands. I'd never seen my son cry as much as he had this past week. Not since he was a small boy with skinned knees and broken toys. Some things can't be fixed with bandages and glue. We found the missing pieces, Detective Lee said, opening a folder. Financial records, communication with a network of others engaged in similar activities, and evidence linking Allison to Eleanor Proctor's death. A network? The word chilled me. You mean there are more people doing this? Lee nodded grimly. An online community. They share techniques, target selection criteria, methods for isolating victims from family support systems. They call themselves caretakers. My God. The scope of the horror expanded like a dark universe. Allison was quite active in this community, Lee continued. Respected even. She documented her techniques in detail. Stop, Marcus whispered. Please. Lee closed the folder. I'm sorry, Mr. Reynolds, but you both need to understand what we're dealing with. This wasn't a momentary lapse or a single act of desperation. This was calculated. Long-term predation. The consultation room suddenly felt too small, the walls pressing in. I focused on my breathing in for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4, the meditation technique I'd used throughout my life during difficult moments. It had seen me through my husband's death, through financial hardships, through raising a son alone. It would see me through this too. What happens now? I asked. Allison has been charged with attempted murder, elderly abuse, fraud, and identity theft, Lee replied. Given the evidence recovered, the prosecutor is confident in securing a conviction. She's also working with authorities in other jurisdictions regarding Eleanor Proctor's case and 2 other suspected victims. Will she go to prison? Marcus asked, his voice hollow. Almost certainly. The evidence is overwhelming, particularly with the documentation found on her devices. Lee's expression softened slightly. Mr. Reynolds, I understand this is devastating for you and your children. We can connect you with support services, my children, he interrupted. How do I tell my children their mother is a... He couldn't finish the sentence. One day at a time, I said gently, covering his hand with mine. With truth appropriate to their ages. With love and support. I failed them, he whispered. Failed to see what was happening in my own home. You were a victim too, Lee said firmly. Perpetrators like Allison are master manipulators. They create careful facades. A knock at the door interrupted us. A nurse entered, her expression apologetic. Detective, Mrs. Reynolds. There's someone here insisting on speaking with you. She says it's urgent about the case. Lee frowned. Who is it? And Mrs. Patricia Whitman. She says she has information about Allison Reynolds and someone named Eleanor Proctor. The name meant nothing to me, but Lee's posture changed immediately. Send her in. The woman who entered was perhaps 70, elegantly dressed, with the careful movements of someone in constant pain. Her eyes found mine immediately. Charlotte Reynolds? When I nodded, she continued, I was Eleanor's sister. I've been looking for this woman, your daughter-in-law, for 3 years. The pieces shifted again, forming new patterns, new connections. Another family destroyed. Another life stolen. How did you find us? Lee asked. Joda Martin, Patricia replied. She never stopped looking either. She called me when she recognized Allison. I've been gathering evidence since Eleanor died, but no one would listen. They all believed the grieving granddaughter who'd sacrificed so much caring for Eleanor. She placed a flash drive on the table. Everything I've collected. Financial records, Eleanor's medical history before Allison entered our lives, communications, photographs. It won't bring my sister back, but maybe it will help ensure that woman never hurts anyone again. As Patricia spoke, I felt something crystallize within me, a purpose taking shape from the jagged shards of this nightmare. This wasn't just about my survival or justice for those already lost. It was about preventing future victims, about exposing the darkness that hid behind masks of care and concern. When you discover a predator has been hiding in plain sight, do you retreat in fear or step forward to ensure they can never hunt again? The courtroom hushed as I took the stand. 3 months had passed since my birthday dinner, 3 months of recovery, investigation and preparation for this moment. Allison sat at the defense table, immaculately dressed as always, her expression a carefully constructed mask of concerned innocence. Our eyes met. No recognition flickered in hers, no acknowledgement of the bond we'd once shared. The holidays celebrated together, the grandchildren we both loved. I was merely an obstacle now, a witness to be discredited. Mrs. Reynolds, the prosecutor began. Please tell the court about your relationship with the defendant. Allison Reynolds. She's my daughter-in-law, I replied, voice steady. Married to my son Marcus for 15 years. Mother to my grandchildren, Emma and Tyler. And when did you first notice changes in your health? The questions continued, guiding me through the narrative of my gradual decline. The symptoms that appeared mysteriously and disappeared when Allison wasn't around. The helpful interventions, managing my medications, preparing special meals, suggesting doctors who always seemed to find new concerns about my cognitive state. Did you ever suspect your daughter-in-law was poisoning you? No. The truth was simple and devastating. I trusted her completely. She was family. The defense attorney rose for cross-examination. His approach precisely what we'd prepared for, insinuations about my mental state. Questions about my medication compliance, suggestions that this was all a misunderstanding from an elderly woman with cognitive issues. Mrs. Reynolds, isn't it true that you've experienced memory problems over the past year? Yes, I answered calmly. Because I was being systematically poised with medications that cause confusion and memory impairment. He tried again. You've had a difficult relationship with your daughter-in-law, haven't you? Tension about your role in your son's family? No, we had what I believed was a loving relationship. I welcomed her into our family and trusted her with my health, my home, and my grandchildren. With each question, his strategy became clearer and less effective. The toxicology reports couldn't be disputed. The evidence from my home, from Allison's devices, from the hospital after the birthday dinner, formed an unbreakable chain. When I stepped down, Jada took the stand. She described finding her grandmother increasingly confused after Allison's visits. The missing jewelry that changed will. The funeral where Allison had played the role of devastated honorary granddaughter to perfection. She told everyone how she'd found her true grandmother in Eleanor, Jada testified, her voice trembling with controlled rage. How Eleanor had seen something special in her. Meanwhile, Eleanor's actual family was pushed aside, labeled as greedy relatives only interested in her money. Patricia Whitman testified next, describing her sister's decline after meeting Allison at a church function. Eleanor had always been sharp crossword puzzles, bridge tournaments. Within months of Allison becoming her companion, she couldn't remember my name. The medical experts followed, explaining how the combination of drugs found in my system would create symptoms mimicking dementia, while remaining difficult to detect in standard medical screenings. Throughout it all, Allison remained composed, occasionally leaning to whisper to her attorney, sometimes making notes on a legal pad. Only once did her mask slip when Detective Lee presented the records recovered from her laptop, including a spreadsheet titled CR Progression Timeline, with projected dates for my placement in care and expected natural conclusion. For just a moment, her eyes hardened with cold fury, not at being caught, but at having her plans disrupted. The final witness was Marcus. My son, hollow-eyed but resolute, took the stand and faced the woman he had loved, the mother of his children, the architect of unspeakable betrayal. "When did you first suspect something was wrong?" the prosecutor asked. "I didn't," Marcus answered, his voice breaking. "I believed everything Allison told me about my mother's health. I even began to prepare the children for Grandma's memory problems. I helped isolate the person who has always loved me unconditionally, based on lies from the person I thought loved me the same way." His testimony continued. The birthday dinner, the hospital revelation, the discovery of poison throughout both our homes, the conversations with his children about why their mother wouldn't be coming home. When the defense attorney rose to cross-examine, Allison placed a restraining hand on his arm. For the first time, she spoke directly to Marcus. "You know, I only wanted what was best for our family," she said, her voice gentle, reasonable. "Your mother was becoming a burden. You said it yourself, her forgetfulness, her confusion. I was trying to manage a difficult situation with compassion." The courtroom froze. The judge leaned forward. "Mrs. Reynolds, you are not permitted to address the witness directly, but the damage or perhaps the revelation was done." In those few sentences, Allison had revealed her true self more clearly than any evidence could. There was no denial of what she don't need justification. Not, "I didn't poison Charlotte, but I was doing what was necessary." Marcus stared at his wife, truly seeing her perhaps for the first time. "You tried to kill my mother," he said simply. "You poisoned her for months. You were going to let my children believe their grandmother had dementia while you slowly killed her." Allison's face changed then, the mask of concern giving way to something cold and practical. It would have been kinder than watching her decline naturally, more dignified, more controlled. "I was handling everything perfectly until that waitress interfered." The prosecutor didn't need to ask another question. Neither did the defense attorney. In 12 words, Allison had confessed to the entire courtroom. When the mask finally falls away, are you more disturbed by what's revealed or by how long you failed to see what was hidden behind it? Guilty on all counts. The jury foreman's voice rang through the courtroom, each word striking like the toll of a bell. Allison showed no reaction, no surprise, no remorse, no emotion at all. She sat perfectly still, hands folded on the table before her, as the judge scheduled her sentencing hearing. Only as the bailiff approached to take her into custody did she turn to look at us, Marcus. Catherine, Jada, Patricia, and me seated together in the gallery. Her gaze held neither apology nor anger. Just a cold assessment, as though we were problems that had proven unexpectedly difficult to solve. 25 to life, Detective Lee said later, as we gathered at my house. Given the premeditation, the multiple victims, and her statement in court, which was essentially a confession, the prosecutor believes the judge will impose the maximum sentence. It doesn't bring Eleanor back, Patricia said softly, or the others we've identified. The investigation had uncovered 2 more victims, both elderly women. Allison had befriended before meeting Marcus. Both had died after altering their wills to include their devoted companion. Both deaths had been attributed to natural causes, with Allison playing the role of grieving honorary daughter. She started young, Lee confirmed. Her first victim appears to have been a neighbor when Allison was just 22, Mrs. Helen Grayson, a widow with no children. Allison became her caregiver, and within 8 months, Mrs. Grayson was dead from complications of dementia. Allison inherited the house. The house she brought into our marriage, Marcus said hollowly. She told me it was from her grandmother. She's a predator, Jada stated flatly. She's been perfecting her technique for almost 20 years. The stark reality of it settled over the room. The calculated nature of Allison's crimes, the years of deception, the lives ended or damaged, and the lingering question no one wanted to ask: how had none of us seen it? After the others left, Marcus and I sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and gold. The evening air carried the scent of the roses I'd planted the week after the trial began, a reclaiming of my garden, my home, my future. The children want to see you tomorrow, Marcus said. Emma's working on a photo album, memories from before. Tyler's been asking when we can have Sunday dinners here again. Whenever you're ready, I told him. This home is always open to you. All of you. I don't know if I'll ever understand, he said after a long silence. How someone can appear so normal-loving, even while plotting such calculated harm. Some puzzles don't have satisfying answers, I replied. Some darkness can't be fully comprehended. The aftermath extended beyond our family. The investigation into the online community of caretakers had led to arrests in 3 states. Patricia and Jada had started a support group for families of victims. I'd found myself speaking at senior centers about recognizing signs of elder abuse. From the greatest evil had come unexpected purpose. The doorbell rang. Marcus answered it, returning with an envelope. From Allison's attorney, he said, his expression unreadable. A letter, she asked him to deliver after the verdict. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. The handwriting was familiar, the same elegant script that had labeled Christmas gifts, written birthday cards, signed school permission slips. Charlotte, by now you've won your little victory. Congratulations on surviving. Not many do. I selected you carefully as I did all the others. The independent ones with assets and no close family besides a single child. The ones who would be missed just enough, but not too much. You were to be my masterpiece, the perfect progression from independence to dependence to a peaceful, dignified end that would have benefited everyone. Your son would have been spared the years of watching you deteriorate naturally. Your grandchildren would have remembered you as you were, not as the shell you would eventually become. Your resources would have supported their futures rather than being drained by care facilities. I was providing a service, Charlotte, a kindness wrapped in necessary deception. The others understood this in their final moments. They thanked me for my care, for my devotion, never realizing I was easing them toward an end that preserved their dignity. You should know that while I may be confined, there are others like me. We recognize the burden the elderly place on families, on society. We see the suffering prolonged life often brings. We offer relief, control, and resolution. You survived. Others won't. With regards, Alice and I folded the letter carefully and handed it to Marcus. As he read, his face drained of color. She's still justifying it, he whispered. Still believes she was right. This isn't justification, I said. It's a threat. There are others like her. and she wants us to know it. We sat with this knowledge as darkness fell, the weight of it settling between us. Not just the horror of what had happened, but the realization that it could happen, was happening to others. Predators moving among the vulnerable, wearing masks of concern, offering poisoned kindness. "We need to show this to Detective Lee," Marcus said finally. "The investigation can't end with Allison. In the darkness of my garden, I made a silent promise to Helena, to all those who hadn't survived their Allisons. Their stories would be told. Their deaths would not be in vain. The masks would be torn away. When you discover a darkness greater than you imagined possible, do you turn away in fear, or do you light a candle and step forward into the shadows?" 1 year later, I stood before a room of medical professionals, law enforcement officers, and social workers. The conference, Predatory Caregiving, Recognition and Prevention, had drawn attendees from across the country. "Elder abuse takes many forms," I began, my voice steady. "Physical, emotional, financial. But perhaps the most insidious is what we've come to call predatory caregiving, the deliberate cultivation of dependency through medical manipulation, isolation, and psychological control." On the screen behind me, photographs appeared: Delana Proctor, Helen Grayson, and the other confirmed victims of Allison and her network. Not as they were in their final days, confused, diminished, dependent, but as they had lived, vibrant, engaged, dignified. These individuals were targeted not because they were already vulnerable, but because they were independent. They had assets, limited close family connections, and, most importantly, they were trusting. Their predators didn't force their way into these lives. They were welcomed, appreciated, even loved in the audience. Jada and Patricia sat together, alongside representatives from 15 families whose loved ones had been identified as probable victims. The investigation sparked by Allison's case had uncovered a network extending across 7 states, 32 perpetrators, over 60 victims. "The pattern is consistent," I continued, advancing to the next slide, a timeline showing the progression from initial contact to death: ingratiation, isolation, gaslighting, chemical manipulation, financial exploitation, and finally, acceleration toward a natural end. Detective Lee joined me at the podium to explain the investigative challenges: difficulty in distinguishing genuine cognitive decline from induced impairment, the tendency of families and medical professionals to accept a narrative of dementia without question, the skilled manipulation of systems designed to protect the vulnerable. "These perpetrators don't look like our concept of predators," she emphasized. "They present as devoted caregivers, concerned friends, honorary family members. They join church groups, volunteer at hospitals, participate in community organizations. They create impeccable public personas specifically to gain access to victims and deflect suspicion." After the presentation, a young doctor approached me, her expression troubled. "I think I may have missed this," she confessed. An elderly patient with a devoted niece who reported increasing confusion. I prescribed medications based on the niece's reports. The patient died 3 months later. She swallowed hard. I never questioned it. None of us did, I assured her. That's why we're here now, to learn the signs, to ask the questions, to protect those who can't protect themselves. The conference represented just one facet of the response that had emerged from the horror of Allison's crimes. New protocols for pharmacies to flag unusual prescription patterns. Training for medical professionals to recognize induced cognitive impairment. Support groups for families of victims and survivors. Legislative initiatives to strengthen penalties for elder abuse. From my near death had come Perpusa mission to expose the darkness that hid behind masks of care and concern. That evening, I returned home to find Marcus and the children waiting. Sunday dinner had become our tradition again, a reclaiming of family bonds that had been twisted but not broken. "Emma," now 17, showed me her college acceptance letter, pre-med, with a focus on geriatric care. Tyler, 14, had set the table with careful precision, including Catherine and Jada, who had become fixtures in our reconstructed family. As we gathered around the table, I looked at these beloved faces, marked by pain. Yes, but also by resilience, by determination to create something meaningful from the shattered pieces of what we'd once had. "Grandma," Tyler said suddenly, "do you ever miss how things were before? When we thought Mum was ... double quotes." The question hung in the air. How to answer honestly without burdening him further. "I miss the family we thought we had," I said carefully. "But I cherish the family we've become." Sometimes truth, even painful truth, creates space for something real to grow. Later, after the dishes were cleared and the children had gone upstairs, Marcus and I sat in the living room, comfortable in the silence that had become our shared language of understanding. "I had a letter from the parole board," he said finally. "Allison's first hearing is scheduled for next year." My heart constricted. So soon? It's just procedural. Given the multiple victims and lack of remorse, there's virtually no chance she'll be released. But double quotes, he hesitated. "I'm listed as next of kin. They asked if I want to make a statement. The weight of this decision, what to say about the woman who had been his wife, his children's mother, and my would-be murderer settled between us. What will you tell them?" I asked. "The truth," he said simply, "that she remains dangerous, that her capacity to present a full self makes her a perpetual threat, that the person we thought we knew never existed, outside. The garden I'd replanted flourished in the evening light, new growth from soil once poisoned." In the kitchen, Emma laughed at something Catherine said. From upstairs came the faint sound of Tyler's guitar. Life reclaimed and reconstructed. Not unmarked by what had happened, but not defined by it either. "We survived her," I said softly. "All of us. And more importantly, we helped ensure others will survive too. When darkness touches your life, do you become part of that darkness, or do you transform your pain into a light that might guide others to safety?" 5 years have passed since the night I didn't drink the poisoned champagne. 5 years of recovery, renewal, and unexpected purpose. The story doesn't end. It transforms. Today I stood with Marcus as Emma received her medical degree. Tomorrow I'll help Tyler move into his first apartment. Next week I'll speak at another conference on predatory caregiving. The days fill with ordinary moments and extraordinary purpose, both equally. Precious when you've nearly lost everything. Allison remains in prison, her appeals exhausted, her network dismantled. The online community of caretakers has been exposed, its members identified and prosecuted. Not all justice is perfect or complete, but it is something: acknowledgement of wrongs done, prevention of harm that might have come. The foundation established in Eleanor Proctor's name has trained thousands of medical professionals to recognize the signs of induced impairment. The legislation Patricia helped craft has strengthened protections for vulnerable adults in 17 states. Jada, now a geriatric nurse practitioner, has developed protocols for differentiating natural cognitive decline from chemical manipulation, from greatest darkness, unexpected light. But I don't share this story for closure or comfort. I share it as warning and witness. Because somewhere right now, another predator is building trust, creating dependency, laying groundwork for exploitation. Another family is noticing troubling changes in a loved one, but accepting reassurances that it's just aging or just stress or just normal decline. The masks these predators wear are crafted with exquisite care, compassion, concern, selflessness. They offer help that seems heaven-sent. They arrive precisely when needed, with solutions that appear perfect. They create narratives so plausible, so aligned with our expectations, that we never think to question them, until it's almost too late. I survived because a young woman recognized a face from her past, because a note was passed at exactly the right moment, because I trusted a stranger more than family. How many others lack such intervention? How many disappear into constructed narratives of decline, their true selves erased before their lives end? This is why I speak. This is why I write. This is why I continue to tell a story that would be easier to leave behind. Listen closely. The most dangerous predators don't announce themselves with threats. They come bearing gifts. They speak words of love. They present themselves as saviors, as devoted caregivers, as the ones who will never leave when others might. Question what seems too perfect. Notice when someone builds narratives about another person's capabilities or limitations. Pay attention when families are subtly divided, when access is gradually restricted, when explanations grow increasingly complex. Trust that chill along your spine when something feels wrong but you can't quite name why. I felt it at my birthday dinner, that moment of dissonance when everything looked right, but something whispered warning. I ignored it for months before that night. I dismissed the signs, accepted the explanations, doubted my own perceptions. Don't make the same mistake. If this story resonates, if you recognize patterns in your life or the life of someone you loved, don't wait. Don't doubt yourself. Reach out. Ask questions. Seek help. The resources we've built over these 5 years exist for you. And if you've survived something similar, if you faced betrayal by someone who claimed to care for you, know this. You are not alone. Your story matters. Your experience can help protect others. The predators count on silence, on shame, on the reluctance of victims to speak uncomfortable truths. They hide in the shadows of what we're unwilling to name or face. Bring your story into the light. Share what happened. Join the community of survivors and advocates, working to ensure that what happened to Eleanor, to Helen, to me, and to countless others doesn't happen again. The most powerful weapon against these predators isn't legislation or protocols, though those matter. It's awareness, recognition, the collective determination to see what's happening before the damage is complete. I survived to tell this story. Others didn't. Their voices have been silenced, their experiences erased beneath convenient narratives of natural decline. We owe them the truth. We owe them justice. We owe them the commitment to protect those who might be next. So I ask you, what will you do with what you've heard? Will you listen more carefully to that voice of intuition when something feels wrong? Will you question narratives that conveniently explain away troubling changes? Will you be the one who notices, who speaks up, who refuses to look away? Your awareness could save a life. Your questions could interrupt a predator's careful plan. Your attention could be the difference between someone disappearing into a constructed narrative or maintaining their true self, their autonomy, their life. This story doesn't end with justice for one family or accountability for one predator. It continues with each person who carries these lessons forward, with each professional who approaches cognitive decline with greater scrutiny, with each family member who questions when explanations don't quite align with what they know of their loved one. The darkness persists, but so does the light if we choose to carry it, to share it, to shine it into places where predators prefer to operate unseen. What happened at my birthday dinner was not the end of a story, it was the beginning of a mission, one I invite you to join. Because somewhere someone is reaching for a glass they don't know is poisoned, and the hand that offers it belongs to someone they trust completely. What would you give to stop them before they drink?